global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Donald, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Well, the Labour Party conference is over. Jeremy Corbyn is, as we speak, in Brussels, talking to Monsieur Barnier, saying that no deal would be a disaster, but he's prepared to do his bit to be constructive, to try and find the right solution. That's at least what he says. Not sure the rest of the Labour Party would necessarily agree. And, of course, we have the Conservative Party conference beginning. Delegates will start gathering from this Sunday, and there's no doubt that Brexit will absolutely dominate the Conservative conference next week. Now, I've said before, if you follow every twist and turn of the Brexit negotiations, of comments that are being made by political and business figures, you're possibly likely to go completely mad, because 1 minute, and regardless whether you're a leaver or whether you're a keen Remainer, one moment you think, great, yep, that fits, it works, we're getting what we want, and the next minute you're plunged into total despair. I've been really rather hoping that the logic of a Canada-style deal was beginning to get some traction. Certainly the opinion polling showing, quite a lot of people support a Canada-style deal. Equally, quite a lot support WTO. Quite a lot of Labour voters support a free trade deal and ending political union. And I thought, well, this is really potentially something the Conservative Party could grab hold of and do well with. And just today we get the news, and I'm not in the least bit surprised by this because I've been predicting it, but, the head of German industry has come out today and said, that frankly he's very disappointed by the EU's flat rejection of the Chequers at that summit in Salzburg last week. And, he's representing firms like BMW, who of course sell 1 in 3 of their cars that they sell around the world outside Germany to the United Kingdom. So I've always thought there was great hope that German industry would lobby. So I was beginning myself to get a bit more optimistic that we were coming together around a position that might work. Until last night, on Robert Pestle on ITV, Amber Rudd, the former Home Secretary, was speaking. Here's what she had to say.
It's obviously not your first choice, but if it was a straight choice between a no-deal Brexit and a people's vote, you would plump for the people's vote.
Well, I think no deal is something that Parliament would assert itself and object to.
So does that mean that a people's vote would be preferable?
I think that a people's vote could be the result of an impasse. So I would ask Nadine...
But is that preferable?
Is it preferable to no deal?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right, so there we go. Amber Rudd effectively saying if it's a WTO deal, she'll push for a second referendum. But worse still is what she had to say about the Canada-style free trade deal.
I think there are a number of people. In fact, I've talked to a few colleagues, and I reckon there are conservatively about 40 of us who would not support a Canada-type deal. But to be frank, there are so many reasons why the Canada-type deal doesn't work, starting with the Irish border, going on to manufacturing, that I think we can make those arguments. But that just reinforces the point that there is an impasse if the two wings of our party face up to the fact that we have these elements that differentiate us. But, the rebel group need to think again, because I think we've only got one shot at a negotiated settlement.
Depends, of course, how you define the rebel group. Some would say that Amber Rudd's group was the rebel group going against the will of the people. But, folks, the fact is there is a huge problem with Brexit. And the problem is amongst our elected politicians sitting in the House of Commons. It is actually difficult at this moment in time to see what kind of deal or no deal Parliament would actually support. That, of course, is all before ultimately it goes to the European Parliament, where the whole thing could be vetoed. Although, if the governments of France and Germany did support a final deal that was agreed, it probably would go through that European Parliament. My guess right now, and it is a guess because we're in very, very difficult waters to read, my guess right now is that there will be a deal, because there always is with Europe. That deal will then get put to the House of Commons, and I'm guessing that deal will scrape through. And I think we're going to leave on March the 29th next year, but probably with something that I would recognise as Brexit in name only. But I'm saying that to you as much as because I want to believe we're going to leave on March the 29th, as having confidence that our Parliament will actually do its job and enforce the will of the people. We may well face, a huge parliamentary deadlock in the autumn, and there could be calls to suspend Article 50. There could be more voices like Amber Rudd saying maybe a second referendum is the option. I'm sticking to my guns. I think there'll be a deal. I think Parliament will narrowly vote to adopt it, and I think we'll leave on March the 29th. That's what I think. But on Saturday, it will be exactly 6 months to go until Brexit. And with Parliament as split as it is, I'm asking you what you think. Do you think Brexit's going to happen at 11 p.m. on March the 29th next year? If you think, yep, I agree with Nigel, we'll scrape over the line, call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think there's absolutely no chance of any deal whatsoever being passed and they'll push to suspend Article 50, then text to 84850. Or maybe you think, actually, do you know what? Parliament may well force us into a second referendum, whatever anger that sparks in the country. If that's what you think, then please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course watch us on Facebook and comment there too. Are we leaving at 11 p.m. on March the 29th, 2019? Yes or no? Tom is a new caller from Edinburgh. Hi, Tom.
Nigel, how are you? Pleasure to speak to you.
Yeah, pleasure to have you on the phone. What do you think, Tom? Are we going to get over the line or not?
I'm like yourself, Nigel. I'm now very, very pessimistic. I think on 29th of March we will leave, but like yourself, I think it'll be name only. I think it's a stitch-up. Like yourself, like everybody really in the country, we don't trust politicians. I think it'll get kicked down the road again, be it transition, be it whatever it's going to be. I just think it's just the establishment are determined to stop this. Whatever way they can do it, they're going to do it.
Yes, I mean, even if we leave on the current government stated projection, there will of course be a transition phase after that, or they've reworded it, Tom, they always do, and call it an implementation phase, and that's due to be at least 20 months. But you, Tom, you're with me, you think we'll just about scrape over the line?
What I don't understand, Nigel, and if you can maybe help me out here, since you're in the know, you're an MEP and have been for a good number of years. What I don't understand from the guy in the street here, which obviously is me, why did the Parliament vote overwhelmingly way back to actually have a referendum? And that's obviously opposition as well. Why were they so keen to have a referendum if they knew they were going to create this absolute mayhem in the country? And why did they vote for Article 50? Why did they do that?
Tom, the original reason that Parliament overwhelmingly supported a referendum was because they thought Remain would win.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. Yeah. And then, of course, they did vote by a huge majority, albeit it took a bit of time, but to implement Article 50, which was done 9 months after the referendum. Again, they couldn't be seen to be turning their backs on the result. Then, of course, Tom, all those Labour and Tory MPs sitting in the Commons, stood under leaders who made it very clear in the run-up to the general election that they were going to leave the single market and leave the European Union. And it's only after that, isn't it? It's only in the last year that they've started trying to effectively take Brexit away from us. How angry will you be, Tom, if we don't leave on that date?
Yeah, I'll be... It's a strange one. I'm going to have a strange sort of feeling. I'll be angry, not surprised, but pretty disappointed and pretty sad that this is the state of politics in this country.
Yeah.
I'm not naive, like yourself. Most people in this country are not really naive. They know there's something going on. But to actually give us the vote, ask the questions, spend £9 million on telling us all what we should be doing and how it's going to be implemented, and then they turn around and say, do you know what, we don't really care what you think.
No, I mean, Tom, one of my big worries is what it will do to the fundamental relationship of trust that exists between the governors and the governed in this country.
There won't be any, Nigel.
No, I think you're right, Tom. Great call, thank you. I'm going to go to Amy, a new caller from the Elephant and Castle. Good evening, Amy.
Hiya.
Hi, so do you think we're going to leave, even if it is in name only?
I hope we do. If we don't, I'll be fuming.
You'll be fuming?
I'll be fuming, yeah. I'll tell you why. I didn't really know the history of what's brought us to where we are. Right. If everyone wants to believe in Labour and believe that crap they heard yesterday... sorry if I could say that word.
No, you can't.
But that rubbish they listened to yesterday... The far left are manipulated by an outsider. I don't know who, but it doesn't sound right. They are so far gone. Trump. We should have someone like President Trump over here. People should watch his speech. I'm so nervous, but they should watch his speech and what he particularly said about the UN
I know.
The reforms
Amy, I
and
loved
the immigration.
it. Amy, I loved it. He said the nation state.
it.
The nation state's the building block. But Amy, you talk about the far left or the hard left, or use whatever term you like.
They're bad. What does red stand for? Danger.
But
Yeah, it does. They're dangerous people. I'll tell you why. Because they are He was a leaver, wasn't he, Corbyn? He was a leaver.
Basically, he opposed every European treaty for years. He did say he was backing Remain in the referendum, though I doubt he voted that way.
Well, if he did, it's because he got manipulated and like, oh, come on, you know, they're just good. Look, these people that are con artists, they're very good at what they do. And Trump is right in that.
But Amy,
and
here's the problem.
The corporation con artist people are running this place.
Amy, here's the problem. You can talk about giant corporations, and I get it. You can talk about the hard left, and I get it. But I'm talking about Amber Rudd. She's not hard left, and here she is saying that she will vote against a free trade Canada-style deal, and if it comes to a WTO deal, she'll vote for a second referendum. So the problem is deeper than just being on the left, isn't it?
No, we can't have another referendum. It's like, so what? Should we then oppose it a year later and go, no, we want to overturn it again?
I know. No, Amy...
Exactly. Do you know another thing? I was going to say something else, I can't remember now. I just want the Labour people out there, the supporters, not to believe what they're hearing. Where are they going to get the money from to do all this?
Amy, we'll debate... I tell you what, we'll debate Labour spending plans another day. Thank you for your call and your passion. Amy will be fuming if we don't leave on the 29th of March. Amar is calling from Oxford. Are we going to leave at 11 p.m. on March the 29th?
Yes. Hi, Nigel. Thanks for having me on.
Not at all.
Yes, I do think we're going to leave on March the 29th. I think once bitten, twice shy. I think she knows she messed up the election. I don't think she'll be brazen enough to betray the British trust again. So I think we're going to be leaving on a no-deal Brexit. And I think Amber Rudd's comments are laughable because if she votes down a no-deal Brexit, she's effectively risking her own job.
Yeah, but maybe she doesn't care. I mean, Emma, the problem is, would our Parliament, would our establishment allow a no-deal Brexit without forcing a vote on a second referendum through the House of Commons?
Well, I actually came through to Andrew Pearce and I said to him, I think that May should take the bull by the horns and call a general election in that. And Emma, that's the other option. The options are, we get it through the House of Commons. Article 50 suspended, second referendum, or she calls a general election. And they are the options. That's the menu. Thank you for your call. Adrian says, what is the point in voting if we don't get what we voted for? Adrian, that I think is the most important part of this entire debate. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's now 6:15 and time for the news headlines with Lisa. As Amber Rudd pours cold water all over the concept of a Canada-style free trade deal and says she'd back a second referendum ahead of leaving on WTO terms, I'm asking you, do you actually think we're going to leave on March the 29th next year? Before I get back to that, just a quick comment on the political party that was set up and established to campaign for us to leave the European Union. I'm, of course, talking about UKIP. I was a founder member of it. I've been in it for 25 years. I've been the chairman of it. I've been the national campaign manager of it. I was the leader of it for a decade. It's taken up the best part of my adult life, and I've always believed in it and thought it was the right vehicle to change things in this country. Today, there was a hearing at the Old Bailey. Tommy Robinson was there. The details don't matter for now. But outside the court, there were lots of supporters of Robinson flying UKIP flags. And then tonight I see that UKIP Welsh leader Neil Hamilton says that if Tommy Robinson is put forward to join the party, we should consider it on the merits. And I've been warning UKIP not to go in this direction, yet they seem hell-bent on doing so. And right now, despite those 25 years of being part of it, I have to say I feel pretty semi-detached. I still sit as an MEP for the party in the European Parliament. For me, it's very, very sad that UKIP is not focusing on Brexit, but other issues, social issues, Islam, etc. Right, I've got that off my chest. Let's get back to, are we going to leave? I still think we will. I think we'll leave. I suspect it'll be Brexit in name only, but I can't discount a major constitutional crisis and something else happening. Suspension of Article 50, second referendum, or Mrs May calling a general election. Trouble is, last time she tried that, didn't go so well, did it? What does Terry, a new caller from Farnham, make of it all? Good evening, Terry.
Thanks, Nigel. I've been inclined to agree with you. I think it's a rocky road, but I think we will just about, if you can call Chequers a Brexit, we'll get there. And I think probably the big reason for that is listening to Keir Starmer over the last couple of days, putting the option of remaining back on the table. I think you'll find that a lot of Tory MPs now would much rather back Chequers than risk another general election. I saw Amber Rudd to that extent saying she would back Chequers, and she's a staunch Remainer.
Yes.
So I think that's the direction we'll go.
So, I mean, it could well be that you get a vote in the House of Commons, and it won't be Chequers exactly, but a vote that keeps us closely tied to some political aspects of the European Union, including EU law. And then Jacob Rees-Mogg and the Brexiteers are told, if you don't vote for this, you'll bring the government down and cause a general election. That's what it could come to, Terry, isn't it?
I think it's going to be fear, yeah. It just surprises me. You've got people like Laura Smith today, the Labour MEP, sort of suggesting that general strikes should be used to force a general election, which is despicable. But I think Labour realise that now is their chance. They have deliberately not put forward a clear message because, you know, you talk about Tories being split between Remain and Leave. You know, you've got the sort of the young, fresh, momentum voter who very much is a Remain candidate. Yet you've got the established Jeremy Corbyn now, and am I right in saying that he can't carry out a number of his policies within the European Union?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of nationalisation, etc., would be very, very difficult. But, Terry, I'm with you. I think we'll creep over the line, but not the one that Brexiteers really wanted. Hundreds of messages coming in. Sean says, if we don't leave, there's no point in voting for anything ever again. Sean, I was hearing that in Cornwall on holiday this summer. Mark is very suspicious. He says they're all in the deep state Remain plot together. Pat says, we will make sure that we don't leave in name only. We must make sure, because that is not leaving. Karen says, imagine how the EU would treat us if we remain. It'd be horrendous. Dominic says the referendum was purely advisory, so no legal precedent to go through with it. It would be suicidal to carry on going. Do you know something, Dominic? Whilst constitutionally you're quite right in saying that under our laws in this country, it was an advisory referendum. The fact is, we were told in that government leaflet, however we voted, they would abide by the decision. And that is a contract of trust between the establishment, the government, and the people in this country. Ian, deeply sceptical. We'll never leave for real. Too many people with big platforms. Well, stand by for the best of three vote. That is his view. What is the view of Becky, a new caller from Burton? Good evening, Becky.
Hi, Nigel. I agree with you in the way. I think we'll leave, but I think it'll be a soft Brexit.
Yes.
Which I never voted for. Personally, I didn't even think until they were shocked that we voted leave, that then it started talking soft Brexit, hard Brexit. To me...
We never heard of that in the campaign, Becky, did we?
No, we never heard of it. We knew we would be leaving, and to me, we heard all the fears. We knew we were going to leave the single market at the custom union, and our country was going to come to a standstill, but we still voted leave. They're doing the same argument now to get the people's vote, which is like, we've heard it all before. Let's get all the elite out.
Can I just say, Becky, I hate that term. I hate that term, the people's vote. Oh, we had the people's vote in 2016.
I don't understand where they think that we didn't understand. Like, we were lied to. We were lied to. When I went out campaigning, I spoke to people, even when that sign on the side of the bus, I said to people, yeah, but it's not necessarily all going to the NHS. The money will go into all sorts of infrastructure. That's just a guide. All right. You know, I just cannot understand how they would think democracy...
Because they will do anything, Becky.
To call it a people's vote. This is democracy, having a people's vote, a second referendum. That's not democracy.
No.
To the point that my older son, who voted Remain, I said, you know, if there's another vote, I says, how would you vote? He says, well, I'd vote no now, leave. I says, why? He says, because they've made a mockery out of democracy. This is. I would purposely vote leave now because we had a vote, we lost democracy, and you go ahead with it. It's like as if the little people have spoken, and it's like, oh my goodness.
Do you know,
They won't
Becky?
leave.
Do you know, Becky? The
It's
morning
a
after
shock.
the referendum, I called it a victory for the little people,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what it was. Becky, thank you for your call and for your passion. Why is the second referendum such a bad thing? I get by SMS. Surely just confirming that the people want to leave, or do you think it will swing the other way? If it comes to a second referendum, actually, I think people like Becky's son, there are loads of them, they can see unelected, arrogant old men in Brussels bullying us, being nasty to us. They don't like it, and it is about basic respect for democracy. If there is a second referendum, Leave will win by a bigger margin. But why on earth should we have to go through it? We've done it. Joseph is a new caller from Blackwell. Good evening, Joseph.
Hello.
So what do you think, Joseph? Are we leaving or not?
Yes, we're going to leave, and it's going to be a bad one, says me.
And what do you think will be bad about it?
Well, before it happened, I was of the impression that it was going to be pretty bad, because mostly just the economy of Britain is mainly driven by services, and for the services industry, Brexit is just a bad idea in terms of the deals and trade that they have with Europe. It doesn't look like there's any trade deals coming in through the pipeline as of yet, so it doesn't seem too good on that front.
Well, in terms of services, Joseph, I mean, it's quite important to get one thing into our heads when we're talking about, the export of services and invisible income, and that is that, the European Union, the Eurozone, is only 15% of the world economy. There's a great big world outside there, isn't there?
True. However, one of the main driving forces of the UK economy is arguably London, right?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why London's such a great place for a lot of services is because of its of where it is geographically, time zone, and whatnot. And most of that comes from the passporting rights that certain companies have
Joseph,
with Europe.
I don't buy that at all. I worked in commodities stroke financial services for 20 years. I think our future's global, but, you make a point that does worry a lot of people, and I thank you for the call. It's the people's choice. We voted leave, and leave we'd better, says a determined Diane. What does Linda, a new caller from Watford, make of all of this? Good evening,
Hello,
Linda.
Nigel.
Hi there.
Lovely to speak to you.
So, are we leaving, Linda?
Oh, I'm absolutely fuming.
Right.
I really am upset. I voted for Brexit, and I'm just so annoyed about the whole thing.
And is it?
We had a vote.
Is it the politicians that you're angry with?
Everything, yeah. Oh, definitely. We voted to leave, Nigel, and they're just, they're just trying to stop it. We had a vote, and I can't believe that. Gina Miller took it all to court, and to say that
Parliament having a meaningful vote. Yep.
It's about the way we leave, and now they've twisted it round to say that it's they want a referendum and Remain be on the ballot paper.
Well, I know, but do you agree with me, Linda, that if the worst came to the worst and they forced us to vote again, they might be surprised by the result?
Well, I think there'd be a lot of people wanting to leave now, but will that, I worry about the votes.
Linda, I tell you what, I worry about all of it every single day. I thank you for your call. Loads of passion on this subject. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC. It's now 6:30 and time for the news with Lisa Aziz. Brexit's confusing. Parliament is divided. They're all over the place. Is there any possible deal that actually can get a majority in Parliament? I think just about we can. I think we will leave next year. I'm very keen to hear from people who tell me we're not going to leave and tell me why. I've not heard that argument. 0345 6060 973. Now, it's a big day in Washington, D.C., where President Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, is appearing before a committee in the Senate, and it's dramatic stuff. Just remind ourselves how strongly the president supports this nomination. This was him speaking at a campaign rally in Las Vegas last Thursday.
Brett Kavanaugh is one of the finest human beings you will ever have the privilege of knowing or meeting. A great intellect, a great gentleman, an impeccable reputation, went to Yale, top student, went to Yale Law School, top student. So we got to let it play out. But I want to tell you, he is a fine, fine person.
Well, that couldn't be clearer, could it, really? Trump backing him all the way. And remember, when you get appointed to the US Supreme Court, you're there for life. And if Kavanaugh gets approved, there will be a clear Conservative majority on that Supreme Court. So the stakes are very, very high. But something has emerged from his past, something from his high school days. And Dr. Christine Blasey Ford was speaking today before the Senate, and she's one of 3 women making accusations against Brett Kavanaugh.
These past couple of weeks have been the hardest of my life. I've had to relive this trauma in front of the world. And I've seen my life picked apart by people on television, on Twitter, other social media, other media, and in this body who have never met me or spoken with me. I have been accused of acting out of partisan political motives. Those who say that do not know me. I am an independent person and I am no one's pawn. My motivation in coming forward was to be helpful and to provide facts about how Mr. Kavanaugh's actions have damaged my life so that you could take into a serious consideration as you make your decision about how to proceed. It is not my responsibility to determine whether Mr. Kavanaugh deserves to sit on the Supreme Court. My responsibility is to tell you the truth.
And the accusation is that he groped her, tried to get her to take her clothes off. He was there with somebody else, laughed at it. They are the accusations that happened whilst they were high school students back in 1982. Other women have come forward and said disobliging things too about Brett Kavanaugh. Helping me through this is Nina Maria Potts, LBC's reporter in DC. Does Kavanaugh himself appear before the Senate committee today?
He will be appearing, Nigel, and we've yet to hear from him because Christine Blasey Ford is still being questioned in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. You're right in saying that President Trump has defended his Supreme Court nominee until the hilt, really. But we did get an indication, some kind of signal yesterday on Twitter from the president that he would withhold judgment until today's hearings were over. Okay. Dramatic testimony, as you say. It's been a highly emotional morning.
And what happens, I mean, after both sides of this argument have been heard, does this then go ahead to a full vote of the Senate? How does it work from here?
It's still unclear, and Democrats and Republicans have been locked in a very bitter row over the testimony, playing out as the testimony has emerged this morning. In fact, the committee outsourced the main part of the questioning to an independent prosecutor, Rachel Mitchell, who's been navigating the questioning. Both of their appearances, both the Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford, their testimony and their appearances will have major political consequences, I think, for both parties, as well as the Me Too movement here in terms of dealing with sexual misconduct. At the moment, the Republicans are saying that it will go forward to a Senate panel vote tomorrow, and possibly a full vote on Monday or Tuesday, but very serious repercussions politically. We're just a few weeks out from the midterm elections, and it's very unclear as to whether or not in this he said, she said account, in which it has to be said that Christine Blasey Ford emerges as a credible and compelling witness. It's very unclear as to whether or not the Republicans are going to try and push this through regardless. Fascinating.
Nina Maria Potts, thank you for that. Well, it's unclear what is going to happen over this very, very important nominee for the US Supreme Court. Just as, folks, I would put it to you, it is unclear as to what's going to happen in our Parliament this autumn and whether we're going to get some kind of deal, go through the House of Commons and leave at 11 p.m. on March 29th next year, albeit on terms that I doubt I will like. Nigel, it had better happen. If not, democracy will be dead. British people betrayed. Trouble on the streets, says Dave. Make no mistake, our traitorous MPs will do everything to force a second referendum. They disgust me. Some people are really, really angry. And it was interesting that Andy Burnham, the Labour mayor of Manchester, said that if a second referendum was forced, it could lead to civil disobedience. Yet he still thought it might be the right thing to do, which I thought was remarkable. Solomon is a new caller from Glasgow. Hi, Solomon.
Hello, Nigel. It's a pleasure to actually speak to you.
Well, welcome onto the show. So tell me, is a deal going to go through Parliament so that we can leave, or will Brexit be obstructed?
Well, I believe that we're going to leave. I believe we're going to get them. We're going to leave on WTO terms. That's what I actually believe. I know they'll try to sabotage it because they're just sore losers, and that's all that this has been. Thinking like what's going on in America with the Democrats. But at the end of the day, I believe we're going to get that WTO deal. Otherwise, it's going to be hell to pay because everybody's going to be coming out and voting to get rid of every incompetent, lazy, and spineless politician that's representing us in Parliament.
But Solomon, do you honestly think that this Parliament would allow... I mean, I'm told that constitutionally the government could just take us out. But in reality, if Parliament rebelled against the WTO Brexit, they could force a second referendum, couldn't they?
They could try, but they won't succeed because at the end of the day, what scares politicians the most is the fact that people can vote them out.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that's one of the reasons, Solomon, I'm back on the road doing stuff. I'm saying to people, let your MP know that if you betray Brexit, you'll never get our vote again. Solomon, it wasn't the best phone line. Thank you for calling, though. Luca is a new caller from Bournemouth. Good evening.
Hi, Nigel. Pleasure to be on the show.
Good to have you on. So, what's going to happen? Tell me.
March 29th, I feel, yes, we will leave. Unfortunately, like you say, in name only. I mean, I didn't agree with both sides of the argument leading up to it. I was a leaver at the age of 22. I believe I was quite politically attuned. I feel like my generation was very swayed on social media, which is unfortunate. However, of course, the EU are going to make an example of us. You've got one person, in a football team kicking up a fuss. You make an example of them before everyone else follows the groove. I see it's a matter of years before other countries start looking into it. But we'd be very naive to say that this would have been an easy streak. I feel people have lost the faith, although they may not be the best people in charge of taking us forward. These are the cards we've been dealt with. We kind of need to fulfil that promise.
I mean, there's been a huge lack of leadership, Luca, on this, I'm afraid.
100%. I agree with you on that one. Unfortunately, like you said, if we do an election, Brexit gets put on the back burner. We need to prioritise. And although, yes, Theresa May, both sides of the party, you're never going to unite one country. You're never going to cherry pick the best parts of the agreement. The EU aren't going to roll over on that. But what we need to do is find that fine line of actually fulfilling the promise, which was leave.
And it's
leave
leave means leave. Is a slogan I know quite well. Luca, I thank you. Go to Crawley to speak to Fred, another new caller to this show. Hi, Fred.
Hi, Nigel. Nice to talk to you. I think we'll leave because I believe that the EU have no intention whatsoever of allowing us any deal at all. As you know, they're a rule-based system. We asked to leave, so why should they give us anything? Cameron went over there and came back completely empty-handed.
He sure did.
I can't see them doing anything at all.
Well, you may be right, Fred. I take a slightly different view, which is that German industry, French industry see us as such an important marketplace. They'll want some tariff-free deal to be done. The question is what concessions we make to get that. So I take a slightly different view on that. But do you think, Fred, ultimately Parliament will allow us to leave with no deal?
I can't see that I can't see that they can do anything other than I can't see that because they can't go against the referendum. Although it is said that the referendum itself was not legally binding. I don't know whether that's true or not.
Legally, Fred, the referendum was advisory, despite the fact they told us they would implement our wishes. Fred, striking a more optimistic tone than some others. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's now 6:45 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz. A lot of our elected politicians don't like Brexit and many are now trying to dilute it, delay it or even stop it. Before I get back to that debate of are we actually going to leave on March 29th next year, I launched at the start of this week a charity auction. It's for LBC's charity Globals Make Some Noise. It supports small projects across the UK helping children and their families living with illness, disability or a lack of opportunity. The offer is lunch with me. For you and 2 other people, we'll do it on a Friday afternoon. We'll do it at Franco's restaurant here in central London. It is superb. We'll do it on a Friday because I won't need to be broadcasting at 6 o'clock, if you understand me. It'll be a great fun thing to do. To bid for this, you go to lbc.co.uk. You've got to be 18 years old to take part. Terms and conditions are all there. lbc.co.uk if you want to bid for the charity to have lunch with me for 3 of you. Back to messages. Damien says, Remain is looking more and more likely. You have to save us, Nigel. Well, I'm doing my best. Jason says, we all voted to leave, and leave we must. Well, I know there's a lot of very strong feeling out there. Nigel, I see a 3-question referendum on the horizon. Chequers deal, no deal, or remain. Split the Brexiteers' vote and force us to remain in the European Union. Then the establishment gets what it wants, says Chris. Chris, I do not believe we could have a multiple-choice, 3-part referendum. The Electoral Commission in the past said the referendums have to be absolutely clear, and 3 questions, and as you say, which would cleverly try and split the vote, simply would not be in the spirit of that. I am going to speak to Santi, who is ringing from, is it Taronga in New Zealand?
Taronga, New Zealand, yes.
Well, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you. Good morning, Nigel. Oh, it's morning here. It's evening there. I just wanted to say, Nigel, that I think, unfortunately, I have to agree. You're right. I think we will have some sort of diluted form of Brexit that will go through in March, which will make me extremely angry. I think there must be many people like me who have voted Brexit. Despite all the negative that we had, I don't want to rerun the referendum, but all the negative, they tried everything. Despite that, many of us really, truly wanted Brexit, and we voted for it. And the only reason it'll go through in diluted form will be what is called self-preservation. The MPs will realise at the last minute it would be suicidal not to vote Brexit through. For that reason alone, they will vote it through, but it will be diluted.
Yeah.
And it will not give us what we need.
Santi, I think you're right.
So many opportunities will be denied. I mean, which country which would allow, its natural resources, its own resources to be taken, like fishing? Would France invite us to go and take grapes from their vineyards?
It's so, when you really think about it, so depressing. But Santi, I'm with you, and that's one of the reasons I'm trying to get people to lobby their MPs in no uncertain terms, is, as you say, self-preservation. Self-preservation could get us over the line. I do agree with that. I do agree with that.
That's right.
I do agree with that. Santi, thank you. I'm going to move on. Lots of callers. Christine, a brand new caller from Luton. Hi, Christine.
Hello, Mr. Farage.
Hello.
Nice to speak to you.
Good to speak to you.
If the referendum went the other way in the second vote, do you think that Europe would just take us back without punishing us by making us take the euro and making us take other things?
It's a good point, Christine. If we hadn't actually left the treaty, then I don't think they could force us to sign a piece of paper saying we would have...
Yeah, but because we've put in Article 50, we've stated we want to leave, because they're trying to drive a hard bargain to make it difficult for us to leave, do you not think that they would try and get their own way in everything to have us come back?
I think, Christine, what they would do is make our lives impossible. If you think that Macron's behaviour and Tusk's behaviour was bad at Salzburg, then you would have seen absolutely nothing to the way they would treat us if we went crawling back to them to say we actually wish to stay.
And as for my MP, I'm afraid that he's an ignorant git, because he is Labour.
Yeah.
And he has an overwhelming vote in Luton to leave, and he was Gavin Shooker, who sat on the fence and would not vote for Article 50 to be
Well, Christine, all I can suggest is as many Labour voters in Luton get together and explain. If he betrays the vote of people in Luton, he will never get their vote again. And our previous caller made the point. The best way of getting this through Parliament and getting this over the line is self-preservation. It's MPs being scared about their own future. I think it's time, I get on SMS, for all parties to come together and get the best deal for Brexit. I'd be very angry if we don't. Do you know, I actually do believe that in the wake of the referendum, there should have been a cross-party group established to try and get the best Brexit possible. But I'm afraid we are stuck with a first-past-the-post electoral system in this country. It gives us tribal politics, and this is what you get. James is a new caller from Southampton. Good evening, James.
Good evening, Nigel. It's lovely to speak to you. Thank you for having me on.
Not one bit. So, James, is it going to happen?
No, it's not going to happen at all,
no,
Nigel.
Don't. No, don't. Go on, tell me why.
I'm sorry about this. I'm a huge fan of yours, and I followed Brexit for such a long time, but I've been watching all the key players and all of this. And first of all, the first person we called in to do the job was a Remainer. our friend Theresa May.
I know.
That's the last person I would have given the job to.
Theresa the appeaser.
Absolutely. I mean, she's totally let us down, and she's tried to pass it off as Brexit, and it's not. It's even worse. So, I mean, that is one solid piece of foundation of evidence for me. And recently, Labour, who I've always thought were in favour of Brexit, have just totally turned around in the opposite direction and are totally slaughtering this. And then, of course, there's Vince Cable, who said he respected the vote. And then at a conference recently, he said, "Oh, we can stop Brexit."
I know.
I mean,
James, they don't respect the vote, and that is the point, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, James, given your analysis of this, what do you think will happen?
Well, I think it will be, as you said, Brexit in name only, so they'll pretend it's happened, and then over the years, everything will just slide back to as it is now.
Right. OK, James, thank you for that very deeply pessimistic view, which angers me, but there we are. People are feeling that way out there. Another James, another new caller, this time from Birmingham. Hi.
You all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine. So what's going to happen, James?
I'd just like to say I'm really honoured to speak to you first, Nigel.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that I'm worried that it's not going to happen. Even though I want it to happen, I'm worried that it's not. I honestly feel like that from day one, the whole thing has been orchestrated in a way that it becomes a disaster and we end up changing our mind. That's how I kind of feel.
Yes, I think certainly some of the European Union negotiators have made it as difficult and as bleak as possible with that hope in mind. But James, do you think the will of the ordinary people has changed on this?
No, mate, I don't. No,
do
I think that our government, which is majority Remainers, and I think that our mainstream media massively is pro-Remain, and I think the whole narrative has just been a way of trying to twist it and getting us to change our mind. I mean, I hear on mainstream media all day long, Remainers telling me that I've changed my mind.
I know.
I know lots of Brexiteers, mate, and I'm very vocal. I speak to a lot of people. I don't know one Brexiteer who has changed their mind.
James, actually, when we keep getting this stuff about how we've changed our minds, etc., it's not backed up by polling evidence. The biggest poll I've seen on this suggests that actually there are more Remainers would now vote Leave than Leavers who'd vote Remain. If we do get a second referendum, James, I'm absolutely convinced we can win it. James, I thank you for your call. Thank all of you for your calls, and those of you I couldn't get to in time. Right, well, I'm going to be back on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. I'll be in Birmingham, where, of course, it'll be the Conservative Party conference. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick. But up next, I'm going to ask him a question. It's Ian Dale. Ian, do you think we're going to leave on March the 29th next year?
Yes, I do.
Thank goodness.
95%. By the way, how are they letting you into the Conservative Party conference? Are you their big defection of the week?
I'll be outside the secure zone. They're not yet accustomed to me, I can assure you.
I'll wave to you from inside. Nigel, thank you very much. Coming up in the next 3 hours after 8, how should the British government respond to the latest news on the Salisbury incident? And what were the motives of the Russians? And do you think it's about time the Russians actually held up